Welcome to Coyote's Corner. This episode we'll be listening to Michael Lang tell American Strength.
During the Second World War, the United States Army's Department of Counterintelligence was assigned the task of concealing American troop movements throughout Europe. It seemed a daunting, impossible task. How could they ever conceal thousands of men, hundreds of armored vehicles moving across the European countryside? In the end, it was decided that rather than trying to hide their movements, false movements would be created. A series of inflatable replicas was commissioned. They were fashioned from lightweight materials, painted down to the most minute details. When properly inflated and positioned in the middle of fields or along roadways, they would appear to be actual tanks and trucks. The idea was that enemy patrols and reconnaissance planes would see these replicas and report their positions. Meanwhile, the real American troops would be far away. But one day, a group of American and French soldiers were positioning some of these replicas along a roadside. Two women who were out for a walk happened upon them. Concerned that their secret might be revealed, one of the Frenchmen ran over to intercept the women. But as he spoke to them, he realized they were gazing past him, gawking in disbelief. The Frenchman glanced over his shoulder to see what appeared to be two American soldiers carrying a 30-ton Sherman tank with the greatest of ease. The Frenchman smiled. "The Americans, they are very strong, yes?" The average American may not possess the strength to lift a multi-ton armored vehicle and carry it without breaking a sweat. But when things are at their worst, whether overseas or here at home, it is the average people, the common folk, who find the courage and compassion to become heroes. And that is the true American strength.
That was Michael Lang telling American Strength. I'm sitting down with Michael now to get a little background on that story and see where it came from. Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely, Toby.
So where did this story come from?
I originally learned this story when I was with a group of other storytellers last year. And at the time, I happened to be doing some research for a program that I was going to do at a senior center. So I was looking into historical stories from the 30s, 40s, 50s, things from a time period that these people might remember from their youth and could really connect to. And for whatever reason, stories from the era of World War II started being told by the various storytellers, and this story was one of them.
Okay, and why did this one in particular stick out to you?
I think the reason it stood out to me was that there's this almost kind of cartoonish, comical idea of that we couldn't hide the movements of our troops, but we could put these inflatable replicas out there, these decoys, that the enemy would see those and be tracking them instead. And that just really appealed to me as something that was almost humorous, that was going on in the midst of all these horrible things that were happening over in Europe at that time. And that just sort of made me latch onto this story and want to use it, and want to learn more about this moment in history.
So what did you dig up in your research for this?
Well, it was really interesting to discover that this did actually happen. It's not just a story, and that as I've looked more and more into the history, that from around June of 1944 to March of 45, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops was in charge of this project, this sort of ghost army. They were all different facets of tricking the enemy in with like false communications and false vehicles, and they even had people out there who were acting. But what was really fascinating to me was that all of this was kept a secret until about 1996, and even today, some of what we were doing is still classified. Even though there are various museums around the country that have some of these things as part of their collections, there's still a lot that hasn't been released on this moment in history. And to me, that was really fascinating and just made this story all the more interesting to me, all the more compelling to tell it and use it.
Well, thank you, Michael, for sharing that story and sharing all of your research on it. And to the audience out there, we want to thank you for joining us here on Coyote's Corner. If you want to hear more stories from Michael, check out his webpage, coyotesinc.com, where you can find more downloads, you can purchase some CDs, you can check his booking schedule to see where he's outperforming and maybe even hire him to perform for you guys.
And as always, don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe to the Coyotes Corner so you never miss anything of what we're doing over here.
And until next time, this has been the Coyotes Corner.